Good morning, hello and welcome back to the channel on this early morning, 20 past 5 at the airfield where I'm going to try to fly with the Mosquito after the fix-up of the previous chapter. I've also got the Spitfire there in the background. Let's see if it can also fly. As I say, it's pretty early in the morning, a little bit humid, so the tissue is wrinkling up a little bit, but maybe not as much as the other time. I have now a beautiful cornfield there in the background, so I hope I don't fly into that because it's going to be very painful to go in and get things from there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to set up the batteries and see if I can do a hand launch. I'm going to go for a hand launch first because as you remember, the airfield or the landing strip is too bumpy for the takeoff. And what I'm going to do, I'm also going to put in some trim on the Mosquito because I do remember that it had a tendency to turn to the left, to bank to the left, so I'm going to try to trim it a bit so that it compensates that. And while I'm around, I see that there are real mosquitoes around. I hope they don't think this is a family member. So I've put on the trim. I know it looks horrible, but at the moment I want to focus on, let's see if it can fly more than if it can look beautiful. I'll try the run up. Let's see. Engines active. Okay, so they seem to pull at the maximum and they haven't flown off. Let's try the control surfaces. So elevator up, not very much. Turn right, nothing. Left a bit, right not much. Also, because of the humidity, the glue seems to be sticking a bit, which is not really good. And then the rudder, let's see if you can see the rudder. The rudder does seem to have some signs of life. So let's go for it, right? Let's see. So there's no wind, so I'm going to try a full power and a rather strong launch. Let's see if at least it glides, and then I'm going to try to take over the controls as I'm doing it all with just two hands, and wish me luck. So I'm not sure how much of that was visible, but it is definitely underpowered. It landed in the grass and now it's wet with the dew, so it's wet due to the dew, if you can say it like that. I think it's good I put on the trim, so I've put on even more trim because it was turning, banking left even if I was putting in full right aileron, which might not be working well enough. So I put even more trim, and let's see, I'm going to try it again. Let's see how far it goes this time. I try to put it in a way that we can actually see it. So powering up and second attempt. Never sure how much of this you actually get to see. I still put on more trim, and this will probably be the last launch because it's getting significantly wet, and that adds up to the weight, which is working very much against this whole concept. Evidently my ailerons need a lot of improvement because they do not have enough throw, and the balance needs to turn. So I'm thinking already how I'll improve it. Let's do one more. Let's see if I can do it in a way that you can see how it lands. I do observe that it does fly, it does struggle along, so it's not just a glide, but it does try to fly. Eventually it hits the grass and just stops, of course. So I'm going to try it again. Let's see if this time I can capture it on camera. So I'll call it a day for the Mosquito. Still a lot to do. It's kind of survived, which is good, but as you can see, it's very, very wet, so maybe a hand of dough would be good, but that would have started to wait. So let's see what other considerations I can do, and maybe back to the table and do some debrief. I'm not sure how much of this was on camera, so I'll see then on the editing. I'll try the Spitfire. Let's see if that one flies today. So here we are back at the desk for the debrief. I'm not sure how much you can see on the videos because it's really not too clear. But I'll start with the positives. The positive is that it does fly, like it does have aerodynamic capabilities. It doesn't just crash to the ground directly. But there are still some serious issues with some elements. The first one, as you could see, that it turns just left and it won't turn right. I have noticed also that maybe the glue I'm using for the tissue, that when it gets humid then it becomes sticky again, so the ailerons are not moving so well. So I'm going to have to do some correction on the right aileron, I believe. I might need to retrim it that it's higher. Let's see how I do that, but I think that's something that is doable. It also gets quite wet, and with that it probably also gathers in some weight. On the underside there's a bit of damage, not too bad, it can be fixed, but that's maybe also something to consider. It would be good to maybe paint it over in dope and see if that would help protect it, but that would add up to weight, which takes me then to the next point, which is there's a significant issue of weight and power. I cannot increase the power because I'm stuck to these engines and to this system, which is cheap but evidently not designed for this. So I suppose then the only step possible will be to reduce the weight. How to do it, I have to consider it. I've got some ideas already, but it'll probably be part of another video on this, to see how I can reduce the overall weight. A challenge that I have is that as I remove the nose cones, which are relatively heavy, they look good but they're heavy, then there's a significant tail heaviness, like it's tail heavy in overall, and that is a problem. If I remove more weight, ideally I would have to remove it from the nacelles, which are the heavy part, and that will only make it even more tail heavy. So I have to see then how I would balance it, maybe with even some more weight in the nose, which might have a bit of a longer arm, not much actually, similar arm than the engine nacelles. So it's going to be a lot about trimming and playing with that. I think that's going to be a big project in itself, because if I want to reduce weight and I don't want to take the landing gear off, because I think that would be probably the easiest thing. If I took the landing gear, it would probably fly, I think, but then it wouldn't look so good. So I've got to see how I can reduce weight, and it's probably going to be in the engine nacelles, maybe also in the landing gear configuration and things like that. So that's going to be then the next big project. So far I still cannot declare this a success, I'm afraid, because it glides, it does not fly, I'm going to say, but some work ahead. So it's good. It's a bit daunting but good. So thank you everybody for following along on this one. Thank you all for watching, and thank you especially to Cliff for all the tips and the tricks and the thoughts, because that does help to continue on this let's say voluntary learning experience, which is great. Thank you everybody, and see you next time.